Good evening and welcome to another presentation, Sefer Publishing Group. I'm Stephen Pidgeon, and tonight we're going to be discussing the apocalypse of Isaiah, but his hand is outstretched still. Thank you for joining me this evening. I hope you enjoy this presentation. This is part of a series we're doing on the apocalypses. If you haven't caught before, you can catch the apocalypse of Hanok or Enoch and the apocalypse of Baruch, which we did over the last 2 weeks. And we're going to continue with the apocalypse now of Isaiah. I want to welcome everybody who is in the subscriber chat. Remember to chat during this presentation. Requires you to be a subscriber, and it's very easy to do. Just subscribe at the base of the channel, and then you can chat. And I will be monitoring the chat from time to time to see what's going on, so I have an idea what people are thinking and asking. And in particular, a couple of questions apparently from Mark Leonard have not been heard. And I'm going to try to keep an eye out for those to see if I can see them, and we can answer those questions. All right, the apocalypse of Isaiah. Let's take a look at this. And before we get into it, I want to give just a little bit of a warning. This I've been teaching on this particular apocalypse since, 2010, I believe, is when I first started teaching on this. People requested me to do this. And it's kind of a follow-up on what Jonathan Cahn presented on Isaiah 9:11. But Jonathan Cahn never followed up with the ensuing prophecy, the part of the prophecy that is, in my opinion, underway now. And it is not what we would call a pleasant discussion. But let's take a look and let's see if it's applicable to us tonight. And we lift this now to you in the name of Yahweh, Sevaot, that his love might be in you, and that the love of Yesha'yahu might also be in you. Right. But his hand is outstretched still. So we begin where we find this prophecy, the prophecy of Isaiah 9:11, beginning here at Isaiah 9:8. Adonai sent a word unto Yaakov, and it has lighted upon Yasharel. And all the people shall know, even Ephraim, and the inhabitants of Shamron, that say in the pride and the stoutness of heart, the bricks are fallen down, but we will build with hewn stones. The sycamores are cut down, but we will change them into cedars. Therefore Yahweh shall set up the adversaries of Retzin against him, and join his enemies together, the Aramim before, and the Pelishtim behind, and they shall devour Yasharel with an open mouth. All this, his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out still. Now, this prophecy, in my opinion, is underway right now. Because when you say that the Aramim before and the Pelishtim behind, you're talking about those in the land of Syria, Aram, and the Pelishtim, who traditionally occupied an area we call Gaza and Ashdod and even Ashkelon and down what is now called the Gaza Strip. In the last several days, we have seen literally thousands of low-end missiles originating out of Gaza, flying into Israel, hundreds being even targeted at Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, and missiles that were in fact penetrating the Iron Dome. Now, the Iron Dome is a quite sophisticated system for Israel, developed by the United States and Israel jointly. And there are 2 such systems in Israel, but they are owned by the United States. And the Biden administration is currently talking with Israel about the idea of removing one of those Iron Dome systems to put it into Ukraine. The reason for doing so has to do with the failure of the Patriot systems that we put in Ukraine 3 days ago, when 3 batteries of Patriot systems were destroyed or badly harmed from a Kinzhal missile strike that caused the batteries to launch all 32 of their missiles. Now, I incorrectly said the other day on a program that those missiles were worth 1.5 million each. That's not true. They're worth 5.75 million each. And they launched all 32 in the battery before the battery was destroyed. And the battery itself is worth $1 billion. So this was an extremely expensive destruction. And so the Biden administration, aware that the Israelis have had success with the Iron Dome, and in fact, the Iron Dome has repelled much of the missile attacks coming out of Gaza, in fact, almost all of it. Yet there were missiles that got through. In particular, there were a few missiles that came in from Iran, or that were Iranian missiles, I should say, not from Iran. And those missiles did, in fact, get through around Iron Dome. And just the fact that any can succeed around Iron Dome is an indication of what will happen to the Iron Dome eventually. They'll be targeted by such missiles. But can you imagine Israel losing half of its Iron Dome defense because the Biden administration wants to defend Kiev? Okay, so who is lined up and is, in fact, moving against Israeli interest? Well, it's the Aramim. Now, we don't have to take my opinion for this. You can ask the Israeli government, because they are routinely shelling and bombing and dropping missiles on Syria, Iran, in order to end, to take out ammunition dumps, or to take out certain Iranian advanced guards, or Hamas, who might be, or Hezbollah, who might be amassed in Syria. Nonetheless, Syria has just recently, we're talking in the last 2 days, Syria has rejoined the alliance with Saudi Arabia, which has rejoined the alliance with Iran. And so it says here, now let's take a look at this again. Therefore, Yahweh shall set up the adversaries of Rezin, a former Aramean leader, in other words, a former Syrian leader. He had adversaries in the Arab world. In fact, the whole Arab world had turned on him and said, hey, let's get rid of Bashar al-Assad and let's put in somebody else who answered to the call of UAE, or to the Saudi Arabia, or to the United States, or to Israel. Well, all of that has changed. And now Bashar al-Assad has been welcomed back into the Arab League. And the Arab League has solved its differences between Iran and Saudi Arabia. And they're now reopening their embassies. So you see that who were the adversaries of Rezin, the adversaries of the Syrian leader, they have now joined together. The enemies have joined together with the Syrian, with the Aramim. Okay, so this prophecy right now has seen its fulfillment in just the recent days. Okay, the prophecy of 9/11. Therefore, Yahweh shall gather his enemies together. And after he's done this, the people to the north in Syria and to the people in the south in Gaza shall devour Yasharel with an open mouth. And for all this, his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out still. All right. Well, does this verse have an application anywhere else besides ancient Israel? Well, yes, it does. Former U.S. Senator from North Carolina, Tom Daschle, made the following remarks to the Congressional Black Caucus prayer breakfast on September 11th, 2004. Good morning. Today, on this day of remembrance and mourning, we have the Lord's word to get us through. Quote, the bricks have fallen, but we will build with dressed stones. The sycamores have been cut down, but we will put cedars in their place. I don't know which translation that is, but okay, we can use it. As a U.S. Senator, he made the following remarks on the congressional record on September 12th, 2001. Nothing. This is directly from the congressional record. Okay, and I have the citation there on this side. Nothing can replace the losses that have been suffered. I know there is only the smallest measure of inspiration that can be taken from this devastation, but there is a passage in the Bible from Isaiah that I think speaks to all of us at times such as this. The bricks have fallen, but we will rebuild with dressed stone. The fig trees have been felled, but we will replace them with cedars. That is what we will do. We will rebuild and we will recover. The people of America will stand strong together because the people of America have always stood together. And those of us privileged to serve this great nation will stand with you. Well, the people of this nation have not always stood together. There was a great civil war, if you recall, that killed the largest single number of casualties prior to World War I in the modern epic. And the nation is hopelessly divided right now. 66% of the nation wants a divorce from the other. That is the common view in the United States. We are not standing together. The concept of rebuilding better has been expressed by every president thereafter. Barack Obama's motto, yes, we can. Donald Trump's motto, make America great again. Joe Biden's motto, build back better. We're going to rebuild. We're going to put in hewn stones. We're going to make it great again. Yes, we can rebuild. Yes, we can plant cedars where there were sycamores. All of these leaders uttered a curse over the nation, a curse which has unfolded ever since. And his hand is outstretched still. Now, I'm going to say this. When you look at this first verse, I want to go back to that first verse just one moment. Because the Septuagint has some additional language in it. The Septuagint reads like this. The Septuagint reads, Adonai sent a word of death unto Yaakov, and it has lighted upon Yesha'yahu. Now, you can see that when you're talking about a word of death, if that were in everyone's scripture, well, then people would take a look and say, gee, this is a word of death. Maybe we shouldn't utter it over us. But we did. So let's continue to take a look and let's see what Isaiah's prophecy, what Isaiah's apocalypse foretells for the nations that have come under this statement. For the people turn not unto him that smites them, neither do they seek Yahweh Sebaot. So instead of looking at this and saying, it looks like Yah has allowed judgment to come upon America, judgment with the most dramatic event we've ever seen in the United States, which appeared to be a terrorist attack on our largest city, taking down our two largest landmarks. But we did not turn to Yahweh. We did not go back to seek Yahweh and say we have done something wrong. I mean, I think the churches were full the following Sunday. And then they petered off after that because America's memory is only about 28 minutes and 30 seconds long. Therefore, Yahweh will cut off from Yesha'yahu. Mount up like the lifting of, and they shall mount up like the lifting of, go back. Therefore, Yahweh will cut off from Yesha'yahu head and tail, branch and rush in one day. What's he talking about? Head and tail, branch and rush. Well, the ancient and the honorable, he is the head. Well, that's happened. The ancient and the honorable have been cut off from the United States in favor of the impetuous and the dishonorable. The ancient and the honorable is the head, and he's been cut off. The prophet that teaches lies, we call that the mainstream media, the prophets that teach lies, they are the tail. And they've been cut off too. You know, the international community, after the firing of Tucker Carlson, is talking about the catastrophic collapse of the mainstream media in the United States. Not because they fired Tucker Carlson, but with the publication of the Durham report, the 300-plus page Durham report, Durham proves, on the basis of the words that came out of their own mouth, that the New York Times intentionally lied for months on end. CNN intentionally lied. We're not talking about Donald Trump calling them fake news. We're talking about them intentionally misleading the public when they knew the story was false, yet they repeated it and repeated it and repeated it. And as a result, once that's proved, you can see that, in Russia, they used to have two propaganda organs, not in Russia, in the Soviet Union. In the Soviet Union, they had two propaganda organs. One was called Pravda, which in Russian means a certain form of truth, Pravda, situational truth, you might call it. And then they had Izvestia, and Izvestia means news, right? And so you might say something to this effect: Tam izvestia vnie izvestia. Tam pravda is nie pravda. In izvestia, there is no news, and in pravda, there is no truth. And both of these organs, these mouthpieces for the Soviet Union, were completely disregarded by the whole world as nothing but propaganda organs. Now, the cataclysmic plunge of people looking at any news source originating out of New York or Washington, D.C. is unbelievable. I mean, it has plummeted to the earth, and it's going to get worse. No one but a complete fool would listen to any word that comes out of their mouth at any time, ever. So they are the prophets that teach lies. As a believer in the faith, you have a duty to disregard the false prophet. If the Torah on one hand says, well, you should stone the one whose prophecies have not come true. The Torah, on the other hand, says that those prophets who claim stuff that doesn't happen, that you should disregard them, and do not be afraid of them. But in either case, whether you want to accept the Moshe's Torah side of it, or you want to take a different side of it, you have a moral duty to abandon and to disregard prophets that teach you lies. That's just that simple. Now, for the leaders of this people, cause them to err, and they that are led of them are destroyed. Now, this could never be more plain than it is right now in the United States. Our leaders are destroying our nation because they are teaching nothing but constant error with their wokeism, with their embrace of climate change, with all of the other nonsense that them are engaged in. They have led the nation to the edge of destruction. And quite frankly, most of my friends and most of the commentators I know are saying that we have fallen over that edge. We just haven't hit the bottom, and that there is no reversing it. Therefore, Adonai shall have no joy in their young men. This is what's going to take place because your leaders led you to err, and those that are led of them are going to be destroyed and are being destroyed. Therefore, Adonai shall have no joy even in their young men, neither shall he have mercy on the fatherless and widows. For everyone is a hypocrite and an evildoer, and every mouth speaks folly. Now, as bad as this is, that he is removing his mercy from every man, woman, child, orphan, and widow in this country because of their hypocrisy and their evil doing, and they're speaking of folly, his anger is not turned away, but his hand is outstretched still. For wickedness burns as the fire. It shall devour the briars and the thorns. It shall kindle in the thickets of the forest, and they shall mount up like the lifting of smoke. Through the wrath of Yahweh Tsevaot is the land darkened, and the people shall be as the fuel of the fire. No man shall spare his brother, and he shall snatch on the right hand and be hungry, and he shall eat on the left hand, and they shall not be satisfied. They shall eat every man the flesh of his own arm. Now, this is a prophecy that has not arrived in our face yet, but it's coming. We've had over 2,000 food processing plants in the United States destroyed by arson and other means. We're beginning to see the food supply being tainted with whatever is left over from the Myrna. We're also beginning to see that the food supply from foreign sources like Mexico, which is now becoming an adverse enemy to the United States, and China, which has now been declared our single largest threat. All of these sources of food supply are being cut off. You can already witness the supply shortages in the stores across the United States. And you can also see massive price increases as a result of the decrease in supply while the demand remains constant. Manasseh, Ephraim, and Ephraim, Manasseh, and they together shall be against Yehudah. This is telling you that civil war is in the future. Manasseh against Ephraim. That was the south against the north. But it's not just going to be the south against the north. It's going to be the minority, the smaller Manasseh against the majority Ephraim. And Ephraim, the majority against Manasseh, the minority. And both of them will turn against Yehudah. Okay? This is a call to open revolution and civil war. This is what is prophesied in this prophecy here. Has anyone turned to him who smote him and repented and sought Yahweh? Not in the United States. We're calling him names now. We've got churches advancing the agenda of everything but Yah. Oh, let's lift up our new God, the Baphomet. Yeah, that's what's coming here. Woe unto them that decree unrighteous decrees and that write grievousness which they have prescribed. This is going on in the United States Congress, who's trying to write the Restrict Act. This is going on in the legislators of Washington, Oregon, and California. In Washington, they have passed a law that allows the Child Protection Services to seize the children of any parent who disagrees with the child's desire to have radical transgender surgery while they're in kindergarten. This is a law in Washington, okay? Woe unto them that decree unrighteous decrees. Woe unto them that have passed laws that say, we shall teach an agenda in daycare, kindergarten, and elementary school designed to sexualize children. Woe to those who pass laws trying to normalize the criminal acts of pedophilia, calling it child attraction. Woe to those who do that. Better for you to tie a millstone around your neck and go swimming about 100 miles off the Pacific coast than to have passed that law. Woe unto you that pass unrighteous decrees and write grievousness which you have prescribed, to turn aside the needy from judgment, and to take away the right of the poor of my people, that widows may be their prey, and that they may rob the fatherless, which is what they're doing. You think that all this money that's going to cure homelessness is curing homelessness? Very little of that money gets to anybody who's homeless, and instead is pocketed by those people who are involved in the NGO. And what will ye do in the day of visitation? And in the desolation which shall come from afar. Do you see this? There is a desolation that is going to come from afar. To whom will ye flee for help? Who are you going to go to, America? Well, let's go to our friends. Oh, you mean the ones that you hit with economic sanctions? Oh, you mean the ones that you bullied into adopting your opinion? Oh, the ones that you were calling names and forcing them into a coward for the last 50 years? The ones whom you deprived of natural gas so they can freeze in the dark this year? Who's your friend? The ones you hit with nuclear weapons? The ones where you killed 5 million of their civilians? Who's your friend? Who's your friend that you're going to flee to for help? Who's your friend? And where will ye leave your glory? Without me, they shall bow down under the prisoners, and they shall fall under the slain. For all this, his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out still. O Ashur, the rod of my anger, and the staff in their hand is my indignation. I will send him against a hypocritical nation, and against the people of my wrath will I give him charge, to take the spoil, to take the prey, and to tread them down like the mire of the streets. Howbeit he means not so. We're not planning on doing that. Neither does his heart think so. We're not going to go down there and tread them down like the mire of the street. But it's in his heart to destroy and cut off nations, and not just a few. For he says, are not my princes altogether kings? Is not Calno as Carchemish? Is not Hamat as Arpad? Is not Shamron as Damascus? As my hand has found the kingdoms of the idols, and whose graven images did excel them of Jerusalem and Shamron, shall I not, as I have done unto Shamron and her idols, do to Jerusalem and her idols? Oh, and what is the chief idol of Jerusalem? Oh, well, let's see. That's got to be the statue of Mary. No, that's not it. The chief idol has got to be the tomb of the Holy Sepulchre. No. It's going to be the Wailing Wall, the Kotel. That's the chief. No, that isn't it. It's the synagogue underneath the Temple Mount. That's not. It's the Temple Mount itself. No, the site of where the new temple is. No, that's not it. It's the grave on the Mount of Olives. No, that's not it. No, the chief idol of Jerusalem is the chief idol also of Tel Aviv, which is the chief idol also of Shamron, which is a 6-colored flag. Wherefore, it shall come to pass that when Adonai has performed his whole work upon Mount Zion and on Jerusalem, I will punish the fruit of the stout heart of the king of Ashur and the glory of his high looks. For he says, by the strength of my hand I have done it. In other words, instead of giving glory to Yah for the victory that is going to come over all of Israel and Jerusalem and over all of the United States, this king will say, by the strength of my hand I have done it, and by my wisdom, for I am prudent, and I have removed the bounds of the people and have robbed their treasuries. I have put down the inhabitants like a valiant man, and my hand has found as a nest the riches of the people. And as one gathers eggs that are left, have I gathered all the earth, and there was none that moved the wing or opened the mouth or peeped. Shall the axe boast itself against him that hews therewith? Or shall the saw magnify itself against him that shakes it? As if the rod should shake itself against them that lift it up, or as if the staff should lift up itself, as if it were not wood? Therefore shall Adonai Yahweh Tsebaot send among his fat ones leanness, and under his glory he shall kindle a burning like the burning of a fire. And the light of Yasharel shall be for a fire, and his Holy One for a flame. And it shall burn and devour his thorns and his briars in one day, and shall consume the glory of his forest and of his fruit-filled field, both soul and body. And they shall be as when a standard bearer faints, suddenly falling down. And the rest of the trees of his forest shall be so few that a child may write them. And it shall come to pass in that day that the remnant of Yasharel and such as are escaped of the house of Yaakov shall no more again stay upon him that smote them, but shall stay upon Yahweh, the Holy One of Yasharel, in truth. Yahweh, Elohai, Yasharel, va'emet. The remnant shall return, even the remnant of Yaakov, unto El Gibor, unto his strength. The remnant shall return, for though your people Yasharel be as the sand of the sea, yet a remnant of them shall return. The consumption decreed shall overflow with righteousness. For Adonai Yahweh Tsevaot shall make a consumption even determined in the midst of all the land. And I will leave you with this in conclusion for our discussion on this apocalypse today. Behold, Adonai Yahweh Tsevaot. Hine, Adonai Yahweh Tsevaot shall lop the bow with terror, and the high ones of stature shall be hewn down, and the haughty shall be humbled. Yesha'yahu 10:33. Okay. Now, at this point, I want to take questions. Anybody here? Okay, let's see. Ed Carver says, would you please read Isaiah 53 for this audience? Hold on just 1 second, Ed. I'm doing my workout today with the collector's edition of Isaiah of the Sefer. Isaiah 53. I would be happy to do that. And thank you for bringing it up. Who has believed our report? And to whom is the arm of Yahweh revealed? For he shall grow up before him as a tender plant, and as a root out of a dry ground. He has no form nor comeliness, and when we shall see him, there is no beauty that we should desire him. He is despised and rejected of men, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. And we hid, as it were, our faces from him. He was despised, and we esteemed him not. Surely he has borne our griefs and carried our sorrows. Yet we did esteem him stricken, smitten of Elohim, and afflicted. But he was wounded for our transgressions. He was bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement of our peace was upon him, and with his stripes we are healed. All we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned everyone to his own way. And Yahweh has laid on him the iniquity of us all. He was oppressed and he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. He is brought as a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before her shearers is dumb, so he opened not his mouth. For he was taken from prison and from judgment, and who shall declare his generation? For he was cut off out of the land of the living. The transgression of my people was he stricken, and he made his grave with the wicked and with the rich in his death, because he had done no violence, neither was any deceit in his mouth. Yet it pleased Yahweh to bruise him. He has put him to grief. When you shall make his soul an offering for sin, he shall see his seed. He shall prolong his days, and the pleasure of Yahweh shall prosper in his hand. He shall see of the travail of his soul, and shall be satisfied. By his knowledge shall my righteousness servant justify many, for he shall bear their iniquities. Therefore will I divide him a portion with the great, and he shall divide the spoil with the strong, because he has poured out his soul unto death. And he was numbered with the transgressors, and he bore the sin of many, and made intercession for the transgressors. Hallelujah. Isaiah Yesha'yahu 53. Okay. Now, Jesse asked the question, do you think the four angels bound at the river Euphrates are Turkey, Syria, Iran, and Iraq? Well, that's a very good question. Now, they may not be those four nations, but they may be the angels of those four nations. Angels who would come to govern what is soon to come in the Middle East. A coalition, many coalition as the adversaries of Retzin join themselves together. Sherry Slama asked the question. Well, this was Sherry that asked the question about the four angels. Thank you, Sherry. All right, let me see if I can see. Get over here to the questions here. Okay. Yeah, I see that, Jesse, with Sherry's question. Thank you. Let's see what else we have. Go back here and see if I can find Mark in here anywhere. Thank you for the request to read Isaiah 53. I appreciate that. Okay. Isn't the fiat paper the greater idol? Well, now there is a question from Jay Barry. Isn't the fiat paper the greater idol? You know, I don't think it is. Even though it is the greater master, I don't think it's the greater idol. The reason being is that the reason these people are trying to obtain the mammon is so that they might better worship the six-colored flag. Yes, let's see. Okay, let me see what else we have. Yeah, mammon created by necromancers. Yeah, of course, the fiat currency has its own spell casting. And, you know, the US dollar is so loaded with occult symbolism, it would take me an hour just to describe what's on the back of one. Speaking the truth rights, do you think that 2 Baruch 85, 10, and 11 is a prophecy for us to look for in the heavens, like in the woman in 2017? Okay, well, let me see if I can get to that here. Because remember, I'm looking at my large edition. And so it's going to take me a minute to get through them. But let's see if we can find 2 Baruch 85. 85, 10, and 11. Okay, for the youth of the world is past, and the strength of the creation already exhausted, and the advent of the times is very short, yea, they have passed by, and the pitcher is near to the cistern. This is a sign in heaven. A pitcher is near to the cistern, and the ship to the port, also a sign in heaven, and the course of the journey to the city, and its life to consummation. Yes, this appears to be a sign in heaven. And remember that signs in the heavens are not, gee, what's your sign, man? Oh, wow, your personality is like this. That is, pop ridiculousness. We're talking about the signs in the heavens in terms of the constellation alignments giving a particular sign. And this is warranted under Genesis 1:14, that the sun, the moon, and the stars are to be used for signs. And this appears to be very much a sign. Thank you for this great catch. 2 Baruch, chapter 85, verses 10 and 11. And again, prepare your soul so that when you sail and ascend from the ship, you may have rest and not be condemned when you depart. Now, this is also something else too. This may be giving us a particular constellation sign as to when Shimon Baruch traveled with Jeremiah, Yirmiyahu, and Tiatefi through the island of Ireland. It wasn't called Ireland at that time. To prepare your souls when you sail and ascend from the ship that you may have rest and be not condemned when you depart. Very possible, right? It's very possible. Okay, let's see what else we have. What do you think about the American flag being flown upside down, says Joe Hote. Yeah, Joe, well, I'll tell you, I think that was flown, remember, that was flown not over the White House, but over the Capitol building. And it was probably put up there by the U.S. Senate. And they put it up over the U.S. Senate because they're realizing that's a signal to the United States that the United States should catch. Wasn't there long, but it was long enough for the citizens of the United States to catch that we are, in fact, in deep, deep distress. The debt ceiling, this is when Congress recognized they're not going to be able to cure the debt ceiling, that even if they vote to go past the debt ceiling, it's going to cause a new round of quantitative easing and hyperinflation on a level that's going to be consistent with Zimbabwe. And so even though this is what it poses to be, in other words, we're in very, very, very deep trouble. Very deep trouble. Thank you, Ruby. Thank you for your blessing. I appreciate that, sister. Thank you. And so when you see this, that flag being upside down, and it was righted the next day. Congress is telling us that they can do nothing about it. They can't stop the distress. So a distress is coming, and the distress is coming here. And you can see the trigger events by the words of our own mouth. The bricks have fallen, but we're going to replace those with hewn stones. The little trees have fallen down. We're going to put up big cedars because we're the great America. We're arrogant. We sit as a queen. We shall never be a widow. And this kind of attitude, and now that I read this prophecy today, I realize that this prophecy is not only about America, but also about Israel. Because let's face it, Israel is really nothing more than a racially specified fortress of the United States in the Middle East, the United States and England, the Middle East, and predominantly the United States and England's banks. It's just a fortress of the banks of the United States and England that is maintained on a racial basis of those who are Jewish. That's what it is. And so under these circumstances, we're going to see something come to Israel that is going to be not pleasant. It's on its way now. I mean, most people believe that it has started. It has started with this latest attack that's been going on. So, what I would say to you all is to prepare yourself, recognize that even so, that Yahweh is going to pull a small remnant, and he's going to take care of that remnant. He's going to cover that remnant, and he's going to restore Zion, the guiding light, and Yerushalayim, the place of safety and shalom. Ed Carver asks, have I ever listened to the Dana Corberstone Dreams sequence? They're all about America. Ed, I tell you, I did listen to Dana Corberstone, the first kind of several prophecies he did. And since then, I haven't listened to him, but I did listen to him. I might go back and check him out again and see how he's doing with his prophecy. I can tell you one guy I don't listen to anymore ever is Mark Taylor. And, there's reasons why. And anyway, so that's that. Let's see here. Okay, so Copperstone Farmer says we might be living in the days when we must head to the mountain where we aren't afflicted by Rome's decisions with dollars and cents laws and declarations. Yes, this is true. That what we need to do before you head to the mountains is you need to do an audit in your own life to see how much Roman collar still remains around your neck. Cal, thank you. I appreciate your thanks. Thanks for that, brother. We need to, do your own audit and find out how much Rome remains around your neck, and bearing in mind that Rome is a polytheistic cult of the serpent. That's what it is. You can call it anything else you want to call it, but that's what it is. And when the further you get into it, the more you'll realize that that's what it is, whose central function is the mass, which is a form of necromancy and incantation, sorcery. I'm just spelling it out. You know me, I'm not going to hold back on some of these things, right? So, Make Stupid People Famous says, burn the corporate fiction channel in fire. Yeah, well, they need to go away, that's for sure. Okay, Nana of Montana says thanks, and I'm going to say thank you too. Thank you to Nana. In fact, I want to give thanks to all of the subscribers. Mark, Leonard, I did not see any of your questions, brother. I don't know what's going on, if it's something in your browser or something. Maybe you have to unsubscribe and resubscribe. But anyway, it'd be good to hear from you again. And I want to thank everybody else for their comments, participation in this particular program. We will be back next week as we continue to explore yet another apocalypse found in the scriptures of the Sefer. Come join us at sefer.net, or if you want specific classes, come join us at Sefer Academy and get on board. We're having a blast in those classes. Okay, thank you, my friends. Blessings to you. B'Hashem Yahweh. May Yah's name be over you, be within you, be upon you, be around you, be on your house, be on your land, be on your family, be on your friends. May his name surround your health and your condition in this life with his abundant mercy and loving compassion. And may this be lifted up in the manifestation of his word on earth in the name of Yahshua. I want to thank you also for those of you who have participated. We will see you again next week. Thank you, Jessica Knock, for your help. Always appreciate it, sister. Okay, bye-bye.